Hey everybody, welcome. I'm here with my good friend Erin Hatzikostas. Erin is a world-class author. She's also a podcast host. She is the host of the Because Work Doesn't Have to Suck podcast. And she's also the author of You Do You-ish and the 50% Rule, two of my most favorite books. And normally I hold them up. Thankfully, they're right above her shoulders because I've loaned mine out, so I don't have them.
Awesome.
I've got to get extra copies. So Erin, welcome. Thanks for being with us today.
It's so good to be here, Bill. Good to see you.
So most of my audience probably doesn't know you, so it would be great if you would
No.
just tell a little bit of your backstory and how you got here.
Yeah, it's great to meet everybody. I started my career in the corporate world where I was lucky enough to come into an actuarial program at Aetna, and then lucky enough to spend 3 years taking actuarial exams and 3 years failing actuarial exams, which was quite humbling. But it's a great company, a big company, and bobbed and weaved my way into different roles and eventually became the CEO of one of their subsidiary companies. About 1,000 people. We were in the financial healthcare sort of realm. And the truth is, I didn't have like a playbook for being a CEO. I was not somebody that went to Harvard. I'm a small town girl. Um, but after 3 years running the company, this company was kind of in the pooper, as I like to say, like
Mm.
5 straight years of flat earnings, no growth. Of course, employee engagement was low because who wants to be part of a not
Yeah.
really winning company? And in 3 years, we tripled our earnings,
Mm.
and employee engagement went up 12 percentage points. So a real success story, a real turnaround. And the crazy part is I still felt like I was getting lucky
Mm.
because I didn't have the traditional chops and resume. And quite frankly, wasn't sacrificing as much as my peers around me. I wasn't always on a plane. I wasn't giving up everything, right, to run this company. And I had an itch for something new, something entrepreneurial. I didn't know it was going to be this. And everybody kept saying, we're going to miss your authentic leadership.
Mm.
And the authenticity word didn't surprise me, but it wasn't a badge that I had sort of been wearing before that. And after gathering so many of these, I finally had this initial epiphany that I wasn't getting lucky, that I was actually using authenticity as my strategy, that I was
Mm.
playing a different game as every other executive. And then over the next 6 months or so, as I started to write my book and reflect and slow the frick down and analyze, what I realized I thought was pretty profound, and that is that authenticity is actually a strategy, and it's not about being yourself. It's about doing things for others. And I know we're going to unpack that,
Mm.
but that's the reason I've spent the last 6 years completely and utterly obsessed over this concept of authenticity as sort of your number one strategy.
I love it, and we're gonna key right in on one thing you just said that if I would have snapped my neck, so you said that authenticity isn't about being yourself; it's about serving others. So I would say if I was to ask 10 people on the street, what does it mean to be authentic? 10 of them or 11 or 12 of them would say being me.
Yeah.
So unpack that. What do you mean when you say it's not about being yourself, it's about serving others?
Yeah. So for me, when everybody kept saying we're going to miss your authentic leadership, I wasn't surprised, but I also wasn't like, I just walk into work being me, like being like I would if I went to your house for Thanksgiving or a pool party or
Mm.
something, right? Um, and there's nothing wrong with being you, but the reality is the root word is authentikos. It's a Greek word, and it
Yeah.
means three things. It means to be genuine,
Hmm.
which kind of jives, right? But it also means
Yeah.
to be original and authoritative, or that's kind of an old word for competent in what you do. And what I
Hmm.
realized is that there is this more nuanced thing that when we see somebody and we go, oh, they're so authentic, like they're not being faux authentic. That's what I call it, which is simply walking,
Mm.
especially in the workplace, walking in and just saying whatever the heck's on their mind, being transparent, being themselves, that there is a more nuanced. And so, what I like to say is that authenticity is actually about exposing who you are when people least expect it
Mm.
in the service of others. And those people that are authentic, they are about not doing what's normal, but doing what's needed, about thinking about you, that breaking up the mundane, getting off the, going through the motions, and doing things that are a little bit original, that are a little
Hmm.
more uh, genuine or real speak, but also have a power to it, right? There's a sort of a juxtaposition where they also have a sort of a confidence. They're not just somebody you want to be around and have a drink with, but also somebody that you're like, I can really learn from them, but I can do it in a way that's fresh and new and different.
So I love that because excuse me, I'm getting over something and so but
That time of
anyway,
year.
I'm being authentic. It is that time of year. But like sometimes I like to say like authenticity can be anything, right? Because some people are just authentic jerks. Sometimes I say it a little differently. But I think where you turn it is when you say it's in service of someone else, because it's hard to steamroll over someone being authentic when you're thinking about what's best for them.
What's best for them. And what I say is, I'm authenticity is sort of my word. I've been so obsessed with it. Everybody knows Erin equals authenticity, but I'm really in the
Hmm.
business of creating connections, building trust, and intrigue slash differentiation. So if at the end of the day, your goal is to have stronger relationships more quickly, if you're in sales, that is the entire name of the game.
Yeah.
Building trust so that they're not worried you're selling them something they shouldn't, that they want to do business with you, and also standing out, being a little intriguing. What I've often said lately is stop being innovative, start being intriguing.
Hmm.
Those are the things that authentic people do for us. It makes us sort of wake up, look at them. And so in order to do that, you you have to think about the other people. You have to think about, let me just give a practical example. You're going into a finalist meeting, you're a B2B in the B2B business selling something. Part of it isn't just about, oh, how do I feel going in? What do I want to do? Because the easy thing, quite frankly, to do is to take that 52-page PowerPoint off the shelf, dust it
Hmm.
off, change the logos, change a few slides, and do it. That's easy. But if you think about, if I were in that meeting, what would I want? Well, first thing you're going to be honest about, like, I do not want to sit through a
Right.
PowerPoint deck with bullets and features and blowhard stuff about our credentials. Like, what do I want to hear? I want to hear what really differentiates you, right? Like, I
Hmm.
want to hear stories about your product or your customers' experiences or your own stories about why you care about it. I want to have a discussion, right? And so that is about doing something that's needed, not normal. And that is what authentic people do. They don't just yes, they bring a dose of themselves into it, but it's the harder part in business is actually bucking the norm and actually thinking about, well, if I were on the other side of the table, what would I want? And so that's where if you can think about serving others, not only, and it's not just noble. So I'm out talking to people about this all the time. What's so important about that too is a lot of times people, I'll say all people, but especially women, feel guilty. Like, well, I'm not going to be able to succeed. Like that feels good to be authentic at work and be myself, but
Hmm.
I'm not sure that's going to get me what I need. And when you reposition it as, look, you're actually doing the things that help build trust and connection that make you look a little imperfect so people relax, that put their guard down because you told them something that they didn't expect you to tell them. When you changed up a normal meeting process, the way RFP is written, an email, like it's such a gift for them and it is more you. So it all comes back. So like if you think that way, it's going to come back to you being more you. But I feel like the
Hmm.
hurdle to get over to understand that this is not just about you, that it's also going to give you success is to think about, oh, well, that's what the other person wants. And then as soon as you do that, again, the benefits all come right back to you. Does that
Yeah,
make
yeah.
sense?
It reminds me of, the difference between the golden rule and the platinum rule. So
Mm,
everybody knows the golden rule. We do unto others as we want to have done unto us, but that's very selfish, right?
mm,
But when
mm.
we first get to know someone, when we're first in contact with someone, that's all we know.
Right.
I'm going to do to them as I want to be done. But once we establish relationship, when we find out more about them, then it becomes the platinum rule. Now I do unto them as they want to
Mm,
have done unto them. And that takes communication. And so many
mhm.
times, especially as salespeople, we just want to be able to go in and do the 52-point slide deck because that's what we know, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you agree that authenticity is uncomfortable and a bit disconcerting.
Yeah, it is uncomfortable because we're sort of taught all our lives. Like I'm going through this right now with my both my kids are in school, but my 13-year-old thinks school's a bunch of crap. And it's hard to like I have to privately agree with him. We're taught that there is answer is C, the rubric is this, you only do well if you sort of get, write the paper in the tone that the English teacher told you to write it. And then we
Mm,
come into the working world and we think that the rules are the same. And so that's why it's uncomfortable. We think we're being judged and actually our success is dependent on getting things right like we were taught in school. And the reality is
mhm,
not. We're judged based on the results. And I mean, I love your reference to the platinum rule. I would argue a little bit though, because what I find is in business anyway, and I agree, everybody's a little different in what you want,
mhm,
but the bar is so low, meaning there are so many
mm,
things that we do that are so inauthentic, go through the motions, a bunch of BS. And what happens is a lot of people think that their platinum rule is different than other people's rules. So, for example, they think, okay, when I go to that town hall, I'm like, maybe it's just me, but I'd
mm,
prefer not to have the dog and pony and where our financials, like, God, I'd love like a little story from the CEO that's funny. And guess what? Like, pretty much everybody else has the same platinum rule there and that has the same want and
mhm.
need. And so, I think you can start with the golden rule, especially in business, because in particular, so many people are marching towards something that 99% of us like don't want. We just have sort of waved the white flag and said, okay, this is how it's done. So we'll follow the rules. When the reality is just about everybody wants the same thing you want. They want something fresh. They want something imperfect. They want something different. They want something bold. They want
Yeah.
something shorter, all the things that would make you more authentic.
Yeah. And coming out of the sales world, I can remember in a long time ago, you can see there's not a lot of hair on the head, but what's there is mainly silver. I earned every single one of them. So I cut my chops in the late 80s and early 90s in sales.
Mm,
And what they would do is they would present the top earner, right? The person that's at the top of the board every single month and say, be like him or be
yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although back then there weren't a lot of hers.
Yeah.
It was a lot of hims. And what I found was like it's just not authentic because I'm not that person. And I think I don't know if you ever saw the movie Multiplicity by with Michael Keaton.
Hmm.
And for those and kids Google it, it's from the 80s, I think
He's
late
like the best
80s.
actor ever.
Oh,
My
and that
favorite.
and that movie he's so good because he plays so many different roles. So the whole idea is he's a really busy executive, and he gets some kind of a miracle machine to clone himself. But what happens when we clone is every time he would get further from the original, there'd be problems,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So we can't imitate. And I think that's what happens. And it's still happening today. Here we are 40 or 50 years later, and we're still using this idea of, just do it like Johnny does it, or do it like Cindy does it, because she's doing really well, so you should do it. But that's really not authentic. And it's one of the things that really resonated with me with the 50% rule. And I was blessed to be part of the launch team and that changed my life because I was looking at training methodologies that said, just do it this way, follow this template, follow my 5 points. And that just doesn't work. So unpack the 50%
Mm,
rule a little bit for the folks, because I've been talking about it through this video course like
yeah.
nonstop.
Yeah. I mean, it's to take the Johnny example. It's like it's half and half. Like, don't do it like Johnny, but don't poo-poo. Johnny's had some success. So
Right.
really look at the end of the day, what is the intent of Johnny? What is his success is because he did tactic A through F. But what was his intent? Well, maybe his intent was to really stand out from the pack, or his intent was to build deeper relationships. And then take about half of it. What are half of the tactics that feel like you, that make sense, that don't feel stale and crusty? But purposely throw out the other half that doesn't feel like you or feels like it's, sort of not the thing that's going to work the best. And then add in your own ideas. I mean, that's essentially the 50% rule. Always look to do half normal, half new, which sounds really odd, but there's such a a beautiful comfort and stretch that comes with sort of this non-binary approach, which says you need to learn from other people, mentors,
Hmm.
gurus, like don't smash into the same walls that they smashed into or
Right.
spend the money on the thing, like learn from them. But also what happens is we go all in, right? They roll out the Johnny rolls out his 52 page, playbook on how he does this. Everything's 52 pages. And then you're like, and you're knee deep in it. And then you forget to look up. I call it sleep running syndrome and
Hmm.
forget to say, okay, maybe I only should take half of this. And so there's a real power in recognizing you need to learn, but there's another power in saying, throw out the half, but make room for your new ideas, smash in things. And as you know, the 50% rule is a book, not because of what I just told you. Like that's a social media, maybe series or meme. What a great way to, get over your stuff, get unlocked, and do things. That's really how it first helped me and helped others around me. The coolest part about the 50% rule is not only, and there's science I talk about in the book of why that motivates you to have to your own way and all of these things, but I started to notice that there was this pattern that the 50% rule was this formula that not only, helped people get over their stuff, but actually helped people really go from unnoticed to unmatched, that helped them launch to fame. So, give you an example, sitting and watching Hamilton. And if you're watching this, hopefully you've seen it. If you haven't, go now. And as I'm
Yes.
watching this mega hit, it hit me. I said, "Holy crap! He 50% ruled Broadway. He took half normal, right? He had the normal song, actors on stage, the set, etc. But then he 50% ruled the music and had non-white actors playing old white dudes
Hmm.
who used to write with feather pens. And there's a really interesting story in the book, as you know, about how this was not the first time Lin-Manuel Miranda used hip
Right.
hop. So it wasn't just the hip hop thing, and it also wasn't the first time Hamilton was a Broadway musical. But neither one of those were the mega hit because of this formula. So I saw it with that. I saw it with Weird Al Yankovic, terrible singer, but he
Hmm.
50% ruled music. I saw it with the Savannah Bananas, who are a baseball team out of Georgia that have exploded because they 50% ruled the game of baseball, the rules
Yeah.
that had never been changed. And so the 50% rule, it's almost like you start with it as just like this whoopee blanket that can help you, kind of innovate or get over hurdles or get unstuck. But it's really a formula once, if you do the work and reps and read the book, like eventually it's going to be your secret formula to success and standing out and making the sale.
Yeah, I love the Weird Al Yankovic references because that was my nickname in my 20s. Believe it or not, I used to
No,
have a huge
no,
afro, and yeah,
I
I
need
will.
pictures.
Yeah, I will endeavor
Need it.
to
I
to
need to
to
see the
get
pictures.
those. Nobody can believe it when I tell them that. So here's marrying these two ideas together
Mm.
because really, when you think about it, you don't know what I shouldn't put it that way. I think when you're your authentic self and you're in touch with your authentic self, it makes it much easier for you to identify what you can throw out and what you keep, what you bring of yourself into it. I know it is for me because I had some mentors that were very successful, but when I looked at them in their whole life, I was like, I don't want
Not what
that.
I want. Yeah.
I want to be true to who I am. So just talk. Do you see a connection between you do you-ish and the authenticity piece and the 50% rule?
I mean, absolutely. And, I talk about it in the book. I mean, big part of, you do you-ish, which gives you sort of a 6 point framework, humans, and it really it redefines authenticity, but then it also gives you sort of 6 points to focus on to tangibly do
Mm.
authenticity. Um, this is, the 50% rule is one, it's sort of a hack. It's a little bit of like a shortcut to some of that. But it also really doubles down on the you in the humans framework, that being unexpected, which I think is so important for the viewers and the people taking this course, because at the end of the day, that's what you're trying to do is sales. Like you need to stand out, and not in a
Yeah.
look at me, I'm a circus performer, superficial way, but whether, and I think so many people focus on trying to really stand out on the what. And that's why I say like stop innovating and start being intriguing. The widgets or the new service offering or
Hmm.
technology that you're selling, and that can be it could be like a bad dream waiting for that innovation to come
Yeah.
because it's usually expensive. Might have like IT or other funding dollars behind it, integrations, and like you're like go to a meeting and you're like, crap, like we've been talking about the same innovation for the last
Hmm.
year because the project's delayed. I've been there, like it's exhausting. But what if you could also innovate on the how? Meaning
Mm.
you're also remembered for you come in with a one pager instead of a 52-page PowerPoint. You tell a story. Your RFPs actually have a little bit of humor and aren't so like, how do you position things just using common words that other people like? I use the word poop. It's so silly all the time, but like just a couple words make a huge difference. I just rewrote my speaker intro for one of my keynotes that's coming up. And, most of it's pretty, I don't want to say plain Jane, but for me, because my writing is very, my brand is sort of whimsical and very authentic. Um, it's pretty normal, but in there, one place I say, she talks about authenticity and how it's not fluffy unicorn doo-doo. I do that on purpose, right? And sometimes
Right.
all it takes is just a little word to make me stand out from the speaker that came before me and the speaker that came after, because now
Hmm.
aren't you leaning in a little bit like, oh my gosh, fluffy unicorn doo-doo? I haven't heard anybody say that instead of blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And so, back to your question, the 50% rule really is that shortcut. It's a little more about standing out than just the connection and trust.
Hmm.
And that's why the subtitle, it's about competing in a league of your own. And that's what I believe it does. It not only helps you stand out, but what happens when you do the 50% rule, and you can probably attest to this, Bill, what I call the comparison cramps, which are so, like you said, it's so easy to compare yourself to the salesperson on
Hmm.
your team or on another company or the person running a business like yours. When you start using the 50% rule as obsessively as I do, you start to get into this mindset that comparisons are literally impossible.
Right. Yes.
No longer can do it. It's just
Right.
it's not apples to apples. It is two totally different things. And so I will do that. I'll see other speakers. Oh, they just got off a big stage. And I think, but that's not possible to compare because I 50% rule everything. And my path, whether it's for this talk I'm doing next week or how I'm building my speaking business, is not the same. And so I literally just cannot compare. It's not just a mindset
Right.
thing. I've done self-help work. It's like you can't do it. And that's what's so powerful about the 50% rule is you get into this space where you have more fun doing it, you stand out more, and you walk around and go, well, I literally I'm competing in a league of my own. So comparisons are done.
Yeah. I think it's Craig Rochelle who says comparison is the thief of joy. And we have, and I think it was
Absolutely.
Don Barden I heard speak, and he talked about, speaking of Greek words, like the root word for competition or competitor is sameness. It's the same.
Mm,
But think about
that's
it. You
good.
could probably attest to this, sitting in C-suite meetings with salespeople, like all that changed was maybe the name of the product and the people, but the presentations were virtually the same and
Yep.
done the same way.
Different
And
font,
so,
different colors.
yeah.
Like,
And so it ends up, our competition really is a status quo. And that's what I look at is how when I'm looking at the 50% rule and I'm looking at my day to day is I'm competing against myself. And
yep.
I'm competing about being different, but not for the sake of being
That's
different to
right.
serve a goal. And as you started this off by saying, to serve other people. And
Yep.
that's what's so important.
Love it.
So,
Absolutely.
so this has been great, but we are coming to the end of our time. We could keep on going, so we'll definitely schedule a second appearance for this. But before we go, let the folks know how can they get more Erin in their lives.
Yeah, so just a couple of ways. I mean, one, if you want me sort of 3D-ish, LinkedIn, which I'm guessing you're on because you wouldn't be here if you weren't. So if you can spell my name, you can find me. We'll give you the link as well. So Erin
For sure.
Hatzikostas on LinkedIn. It's sort of a second home for me. I love interacting there. And then beauthenticinc.com is just the letter B, authentic.inc.com. You can check out the books, the TED Talk, the free resources. Um, you can stalk me there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for talking to us today. It was a pleasure to have you, and we'll talk again soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.